What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 2006 mixtape by Lil Boosie. Basically, this project is called Streetz is Mine, and it came out in the late fall of 2006. Now this, now this is a Gangsta Grillz production, so this is hosted by DJ Drama and stuff. So this project is a Gangsta Grillz production. It's hosted by DJ Drama and stuff. And this particular project is pretty interesting, just because this particular project is pretty interesting, just because this came out on the heels of Lil Boosie's late two. This particular project is pretty interesting because it came out on the heels of Lil Boosie's late 2006 album, which was called Badass, and that came out in the fall of 2006. I reviewed that back in the summer of 2023. It's a pretty hit album. Definitely has a lot of variety. The Badass album definitely has a lot of variety about it. Some good songwriting on there, stuff like that. As a hit single in the format of Zoom and some stuff like that. So that definitely has a lot of variety. But this mixtape, I would definitely say, is actually better than Badass. I would have to say. I remember giving Badass like a 7.75 or like a light 8, something like that. Just something within that relative kind of quality and stuff. But this is actually one that upstages that particular project. This has a lot of good crunk numbers on here. Just kind of interesting, kind of get this. It's just interesting to get this mixtape's particular pitch as far as this project kind of goes. I would have to say it's an interesting kind of concept. This mixtape doesn't have a single on it, but I would have to say it's definitely got some good stuff on here. I would definitely have to suppose it's a good pitch overall to kind of have. This mixtape may not have a particular single on it, but I would have to say it's just got some pretty sheer quality overall, and it's just a good vibe, and it's just a surprising one of Boosie's. This project is surprisingly one of Boosie's most inspired ones. I'd have to say it definitely has a lot of good ferocity on it, just a lot of good pitches. It's just more of a residential type project, so this one's not quite like, I remember saying about the Badass album that was good, but that one just didn't have like enough nightclub songs. Apart from Set It Off and Zoom, it didn't really have a lot of nightclub fare as far as that pitch kind of having. It was just a lot more Tupac like, just within that introspectiveness of albums like Me Against the World by him as far as that pitch kind of happened. But I'd have to say this one's a little bit more in your face a bit, but just kind of in a more, this project's just a little bit more in your face, just with a more residential sense kind of in mind. So it's kind of similar, like when I reviewed the Juicy J album not too long ago, I kind of remember talking about the fact that it had some real house party type affairs, and this is kind of not necessarily a house party in mind wholesomely, but it does have some good house party type bops on here. Like I would say songs like Streets is Mine, Too Much, Beat It Up, some of those type ones are just kind of more residential and around the neighborhood, around the house type fare, just stuff like that, just residential type stuff in terms of like visiting gas stations and visiting gas stations and drugstores and local grocery stores as far as that pitch kind of particularly kind of happens. Just a lot more homebound and just things like that, just in a more residential type fare, I'd have to suppose. But the thing about it is it keeps kind of some of this haunting and kind of more gritty type fare. Like something about the Badass album from 2006 by Lil Boosie is just the fact that it was kind of a haunting kind of pitch on there. There were songs like Set It Off and some of those type ones. There were some other ones I'm trying to think of, like That's What They Like, and some of those particular type ones that just had a real kind of haunting and grim and glittering type feel just within that pitch as far as some of that kind of aspect. I mean, it wasn't a full-blown horrorcore album, but it definitely was almost kind of like a southern rap kind of horrorcore type album just within the pitch of just having some real kind of gritty type atmospheres just within the pitch of it. And this mixtape kind of does that in certain pitches, at least to a certain extent. I mean, it does have like some kind of boppish type ones that just kind of more residential type fare that just kind of feels like barbecue or cookout type fare. This is kind of like a decently little summer album, just something that would be good to listen to August, September, early October, some of those type pitches, I would have to suppose. But the thing about this particular mixtape is just the fact this mixtape is kind of low key, and on top of that, I would have to say the fact of the matter is that there are several songs on this particular mixtape, at least when you download it from the old DatPiff files or something like that, or some of these places like the Internet Archive, some of these type places. It's just kind of the fact that some of these songs are kind of nixed. Some of these songs are kind of nixed, and in certain senses, I kind of see why, because there were some songs from Badass on this particular mixtape. So there's some songs like I'm Mad and Distant Lover and Don't Know My Struggle that I'd have to say that are kind of on that particular album, I'd have to say. And also Set It Off is another one, so that's a good pitch to kind of get that particular stuff. Actually, I kind of forgot that Don't Know My Struggle is kind of a different beat, so despite being on the mixtape, certain mixtapes it doesn't have the song, that's actually got a different variation of the beat, and I want to say different lyrics also, so it's kind of a good concept about that. But I would have to say, to understand the fact that it just kind of has like some diciness in terms of the songs that are actually on the mixtape as far as like a downloadable type fare. Now there are some places like on YouTube and stuff that you can get some of these extra type songs, but I downloaded this mixtape like a couple of times. And both times I did, it kind of gave me the Natch kind of songs that kind of annoyed me a bit, but it's just kind of the concept that you just have to look around a little bit more to kind of get these particular ones, because this is kind of an old mixtape, 17 years ago, just within that pitch as far as that kind of happens. But we'll go ahead and talk about the songs I recommend on here. Since there's not any single, I'll go ahead and recommend these. So out of 15 songs, basically there's 18 songs in this particular mixtape, and minus 3 skits or interludes and stuff like that, it would narrow it down to 15. So out of those 15, I wound up recommending to you 8 songs plus. So out of those 15 songs, I wound up recommending to you 8 songs plus 3 almost songs. So that's kind of the pitch. About 11 out of 15 is pretty damn good, I'd have to say. Basically the same kind of pitch. Very similar to like Superbad. I remember giving Superbad, the album by Lil Boosie, like a 10 out of 10. So that's a pretty good pitch. But this is up there with that one. Badass is nothing to sneeze at either. That got like a 7.75, something like that. But I do definitely feel like this mixtape is better than Badass, I'd have to suppose. This may not have a sheer bona fide single like Zoom, but it definitely has plenty of quality on here, and we'll get to that. So we're going to talk about some of these. So basically the 8 songs I recommend would be Beat It Up, Jealousy, Let's Get Ignorant, Sexy Lady, Streetz Is Mine, the title track, They Dyke In, Too Much, and You Down to Ride. So those are definitely some good pitches to kind of get within that sense. And I'd have to say the 3 almost songs would be Distant Lover, Don't Know My Struggle, and Set It Off. So that's kind of the pitch about those. So in particular, like a real good highlight on this particular mixtape would be You Down to Ride. Definitely enjoyed this one. This is like a creeping kind of residential night gem, I'd have to say. It's similar to Deep Cover by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, I would definitely feel like, and it's just kind of that same pitch within a southern vibe of that. So this one has like a real creeping type beat, just very similar to Deep Cover, just within the sense of being like a more southern fried type tune, just within that sense. Definitely something for like midnight kind of residential type fare, just a real nice one to kind of have just within a real kind of late night antics. It's really kind of some late night antics type fare, just not just, I kind of see it as like a strolling song, but I'd also kind of see it as like a smokish type song, just kind of for night activities and just kind of more night owl type fare as far as that pitch kind of happens. Definitely like that one. Streetz Is Mine, the title track, is a very good highlight. Definitely enjoyed this one. This is like a sparkly kind of pull up tune, I'd have to say. Definitely a nice one for that sort of pitch. This is just a high grade flash and has pizzazz about it, I definitely have to say. This is a pretty good stunt song, and it's a good club bop, I would definitely feel like. So this is a pretty good highlighted one. Yeah, this is a different pitch from Lil Boosie. I definitely feel like he needed more songs like Streetz Is Mine on Badass, I would definitely have to say. This one just has a lot of vivid appeal. This is like a pretty flashy overall type song that just works pretty heavily. Just has that good kind of stunt type appeal about it. And considering that this mixtape is free, there's really no reason not to vibe with this particular one. This is just a great kind of dap song and house party type fare, I would definitely have to suppose. It's a real kind of entry type one, and just vanilla kind of kick things off, just the initial dap getting some stuff like that as far as that pitch kind of happens. It's a real kind of easy kind of vehicle pull-up song, especially if you like 2000s type pull-up music, I'd have to suppose. It's kind of a great one for your vehicle and stuff like that, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good pitch to kind of get that. Another favorite of mine off this particular mixtape would be Too Much. This is definitely like a gloomy kind of night simmering, lean, crunk-like bop, I would have to say. Definitely a pretty nice one as far as that pitch kind of happens, I definitely would have to suppose. This is like a vintage kind of steady, tear the club up type tune. And this one's just kind of a different pitch for Lil Boosie, I'd have to suppose. This is kind of one that reminds me of Lil Scrappy's No Problems from like his Crunk 2004 album that he dropped back in the day. But it's just kind of a good pitch to kind of get this one, just because I definitely feel like this piano type beat just has a lot of crunk type fare about it. It's interesting just because Lil Boosie didn't always do crunk. He was kind of past that time for the most part as far as that pitch kind of particularly went with it. But I just would have to suppose it's a good aspect to kind of get that on, just because it's kind of like a blending of styles where it's just some southern fried kind of like, it's just some southern fried, more of like Webby and Pimp C type music, more so than like Lil Jon and Lil Scrappy, I'd have to suppose. But it's a good blend to kind of get that particular mixture as far as that kind of happens. Just a good affable type style just within that crunk type beat. Just very much reminds me of No Problem by Lil Scrappy. Just that same kind of piano type beat, just like a real lean and kind of simmering. This particular song kind of simmers, but it simmers in like a night sense, I'd have to suppose. So it's just a good pitch to kind of get this particular one as far as that kind of leanness, just the leanness of this song kind of overall goes just with it. It's just a very excellent one, I'd have to suppose. Great beat, great Lil Boosie lyrics on here. Just a good concept to kind of get some of this. Lil Boosie really rides this beat pretty well and just nails it, is what I'd have to say. Jealousy is a pretty nice one. This is like a glimmering kind of night out. Jealousy is a pretty good highlighted one on here. This is like a glimmering kind of night on the town vibe. So I'd have to say this is like a residential bop. Definitely, it's just a midnight snack kind of music and smoke one kind of tune. So Jealousy kind of feels like more of like typical Lil Boosie, I'd have to suppose, just within that standard kind of pitch. Definitely feels like a Lil Boosie and Webby song, and Webby's on this particular song, so it's a good concept to kind of get both them on there. And there's some other folks like Big Heads on there and some stuff like that. It's kind of, the thing about this particular mixtape is it doesn't really list, there's not really a wiki article about this particular mixtape. It's kind of low key to the sense that you don't really get that information. So there's not a ton of information about this particular product, and really there's not too many websites that know tons about it, I'd have to suppose. It's just kind of the concept. I know that Webby's on the song, Big Head's on on here. There's a song that Fox is on too. There's another good pitch of some of these that Fox is on one of these. He's not on there a whole bunch, but it's just good enough to kind of get some of that. So this is like vintage Lil Boosie here, and this is just kind of an evening type pitch of a song, I'd have to say. Just a night on the town, just kind of residential hopping. Just a lot of these are just, like I was saying, residential bops. Just kind of some good grade type stuff, 7:30, 8:30 p.m., something like that. Just getting midnight snacks, just in the evening or midnight type hazes, some of that, just kind of just affable kind of strolling type tunes, just in the residential area, just some stuff like that. Definitely smoke a few type tunes, not quite as glimmering, not quite as much of like night highlights as Too Much and Streetz is Mine, but this is just a good kind of evening pitch and one to kind of have just within some real good kind of haze just within that aspect, that has to suppose. That's a nice one. Sexy Ladies is a pretty good highlight, and I'm glad that this song's on here because Lil Boosie definitely could have used a few more nightclub songs. I definitely would have to suppose, but it's a good concept. I'm not going to knock the score because it doesn't have that many, but I still would have to say it's a good pitch to kind of get this one. This is like a hazy kind of glimmering nightclub bounce of a song, I'd have to say. This is definitely a club song for Bay and for Boo, I would have to say, and this is just a radio ready song, definitely, and it just reminds me of like a low key kind of gem. And this song is just a low key kind of gem, so I would definitely enjoy this one. This one just kind of has like a very hazy type beat, just really kind of just simmering type one that just has a lot of glimmer about it that just works pretty damn well, I'd have to suppose. Yeah, Sexy Lady is definitely a pretty radio ready type one, just has a lot of commercial kind of appeal, definitely pretty glistening type hook on here, just works pretty damn well. R&B singer on the hook just within that pitch as far as that kind of happens. It's a really nice club bounce, probably one of the most commercial songs Lil Boosie's been on, at least up to that point, I'd have to suppose. It's a real highlighted one. But the problem with this particular song is just the fact when you download it on like the Dat Piff mixtape or certain other mixtapes that you might find from this, it just doesn't particularly kind of have this song. They nixed this song for some particular reason. Not really sure if it was on like an independent album by Lil Boosie around this time or something like that, but I think this was pretty much like a mixtape exclusive, so I don't know why. I think that this song was a mixtape exclusive, so I don't know why it wasn't on this particular one, but it's just kind of the concept about it. So you may just have to search a little bit to find the right mixtape that has it, I have to suppose. And then Beat It Up. Beat It Up's a pretty highlighted one. Definitely enjoyed this one. Beat It Up is just a typical kind of vanilla late day residential commute of a song, I'd have to say. It's just around the neighborhood kind of bop, and I definitely like this one. It's just pretty malaised and mellow, just standard kind of, just pretty malaised and mellow, just standard kind of evening fare, just would have to suppose, just midday, late day, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock p.m. type fare, just getting snacks, things like that, just kind of just strolling around, smoking a swish or something like that, just kind of easy kind of day malaise, just got done with work in like a hustlers, just got done with work in a more hustlers kind of sense, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good pitch to kind of get that particular one. So it's just some good stuff on this particular mixtape, I'd have to say. Definitely talk about some of these. There's some extra ones on here, like the two songs that are just freestyles to like the two songs that are freestyles to songs of like other songs, like Let's Get Ignorant is Lean With It, Rock With It by Dem Franchise Boys, and then They Dykin is Trap Star by Young Jeezy. Both these are pretty highlighted ones. And the thing about it is you can get They Dykin. The thing about it is you can get They Dykin on this particular mixtape, but you can't get Let's Get Ignorant. So I don't know why the Dem Franchise Boys beat didn't translate to this particular one. It was just kind of the concept that they're both good songs. They both are pretty good expansions of those particular songs. They just have some good pitches. The They Dykin one's a pretty good expansion of Trap Star. Just kind of puts it in a sense of odes to lesbian women and stuff like that. Definitely like the pitch of that particular one. Definitely a pretty good highlight, good original idea from Lil Boosie as far as that particularly kind of happened. And then Let's Get Ignorant is just kind of the same dance type pitch as like the Dem Franchise Boys type song that particularly that one kind of has. So talk about some of the songs I didn't enjoy on here, which would just be 4 of these. Basically, I still don't enjoy I'm Mad that much. That was kind of a blunder off the Badass album, I'd have to suppose. At least from what I remember, I didn't enjoy that song, so I still don't recommend it now. Do the Ratchet just kind of had like a poor beat. That one was just trying to be, that one was pretty similar to Beat It Up, just kind of more around the neighborhood type fare, just in like a more day type sense. It's a mellow kind of lazy day, but that beat was just not quite as wholesomely enjoyable, I'd have to suppose. What About Me was just kind of a poor one, just didn't really appreciate the vibes and the overall lyric context of that particular one. It was just kind of one. I mean, Lil Boosie's pretty faceted rapper, so he has plenty to, it just kind of felt like he felt left out. It was just kind of the concept that is just kind of didn't really, and it was just kind of an awkward one to kind of listen to. And then I just didn't really appreciate the rickety kind of glimmering type vibe of You Don't Want to Go to War. So that one was just one I didn't vibe with as much. So the score I'm going to give this particular mixtape, me recommending basically 11 songs out of 15 on here, I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like a 9 out of 10. It's just that damn good, I would have to say. Definitely better than Badass. Pretty close to being up there with Superbad, which I gave a 10. Definitely a pretty good pitch. I'd probably say that it's better than Lil Boosie's 2010 album also, which I forget what that one's called. like incarcerated. It's better than incarcerated, I'd have to suppose. It's a good pitch to kind of get that one, but it's definitely, I'm upping the score a little bit just because it's a mixtape and it's free and there's just a bunch of highlights on here. The only real one of the few weaknesses to this mixtape is just the fact that the mixtape that's available on like DatPiff and Internet Archive and some of those type places is just kind of tricky to get just because they nixed so many songs. They didn't just nix the songs that were on Badass from 2006, but they also nixed some extra ones on here like Sexy Lady and some of those type ones. So it's just kind of a poor pitch to kind of search around for some of these, just trying to find the right link to get the songs. Because there's definitely some excellence to this particular mixtape. This is definitely one of Lil Boosie's best. Lil Boosie and DJ Drama did an excellent job of bolstering this kind of project. It's just kind of the fact that it's kind of tough to find just because it's so old and stuff like that. So that's kind of the concept. The social score I'm going to give like a 9 also. The social score I'm going to give like a 9 also because it does have the highlights on here, and I definitely like this residential type fare from Lil Boosie. This is a new and kind of different pitch that I just wasn't expecting from him as far as that kind of particularly kind of happened. Just had some stuff on here that just really had some house party type vibes and just residential strolling type stuff, just getting snackage and smokage and stuff like that. Just some real kind of midnight fare and evening based type fare just within a haunting sense. And of course Lil Boosie has a pretty energetic draw and stuff like that, so it's just a good pitch to kind of get some of these haunting type vibes in like an evening kind of sense and like a just in kind of a makeshift after hours kind of sense, I'd have to suppose. That's a good pitch to kind of get that one. Just would have to say it's just got some real good affable vibes and like a social sense. So it's pretty highlighted. Just would have to suppose just within that concept. Just you and your pal shouldn't have too much of a time trying to find good gems off this particular project to kind of fuck with. I'd have to suppose. That's a good pitch about that. And then I would say in terms of the future, like Lil Boosie dropped an album. In terms of the future, like Lil Boosie dropped an album in 2023, so he has put out a pretty wicked sense of projects. He has over 30 or 40 mixtapes. I'd have to suppose there is plenty more of these to kind of get and stuff. I'd have to say, so it's a good pitch to kind of get that. But I am going to definitely review some more of these mixtapes and stuff like that. And we'll get to some more of these albums and things like that. So I do highly recommend this. This is up there with Super Bad and Incarcerated and some of those type ones. And Badass is pretty good also, but all of these are pretty damn good to kind of get. And this is definitely Lil Boosie in his prime form and just doing a lot of things right, especially in the residential sense.